Aghanim has placed this energy barrier on the front of his tower, making it so Link cannot get inside. Even if you do something fancy, like you line up for a door dash on the edge of this rail here, and then dash up to bonk open the door, that's pretty easy to do, but you're still several pixels away from actually being able to walk through the door. Unless you have the cape to bypass the barrier, or you have the Master Sword to kill it, and maybe some other ways that I'm not going to mention here because it's not super relevant, then you cannot get past this barrier. However, there is currently a sequence break involving a fairy in a bottle, a mirror, and access to the top of the pyramid that allows you to be fairy revived and bonked inside of the door. This is a brand new method that does the same thing, but it only requires the Cane of Samaria and, of course, access to this part of the map as well. So this is the most viable way in terms of like actually having the items necessary to get inside. Let me just show you what it is. So the setup, there's a few ways to set it up. I'm going to show you a way that involves bonking, first of all. So if you have the boots, you can do it this way. I'm just going to line it up on the correct pixel here. That's 1 pixel too high. And one more. There we go. So now this is high enough that if I were to try to sneak around the Samaria block from this direction, if I were on the topmost pixel I could before I started taking damage from the energy barrier, I would just push the block. But with the boots, what I can do is bonk into position. Now I'm beginning this tech already clipped into the block, which is ideal. From here, what I want to do is hold up or up diagonal, either one, it doesn't matter, for the very first movement. And then continue to hold a diagonal input as I'm being electrocuted. The diagonal input will make it so the Samaria block actually cancels my recoil. This is used in other tech, like the 2-in-1 Master Sword Samaria Ganon fight, in order to essentially place a wall wherever you need and get in free double spins. But you need to be holding a diagonal input for this tech specifically to ensure that Link doesn't go anywhere and you don't accidentally move the Samaria block in some place that you didn't mean to. So now that I've been damaged and I'm clipped into the block successfully, what I need to do is get inside this doorway. First step is align with the door. So the door is 7F8, that's the X position. I highly recommend doing this in the practice hack with coordinates turned on to start, and then later on using only the pixel references. What I use for this sprite is Link's ear to just tell if whether or not he's in the middle of the doorway. Okay, so now I'm going to do one more damage. If I were to be damaged again, let me just demonstrate this, what happens. So I'm going to continue to hold a diagonal input, and you can notice that I'm pushing the Samaria block back and forth here. That's because if I just keep pushing it in the same diagonal direction, it'll push the block off in that direction until it's no longer blocking my recoil. So if you look at my Y coordinate, you might have noticed that I'm back down to 66B, whereas before I think I was at 669. So let me just demonstrate that again. So there's 66A, there's 669, and if I keep doing this, then I'm back down to 66B. So I'm just in a cycle right now. I'm not making any progress into the door, and I've also gotten off alignment a little bit here. So let me go back to the 669. So when I'm at this kind of position, and I'm not looking at the Y position as much as I am my relative position to the Samaria block, then I need to change something. Because if I take one more damage, what's going to happen is I'm going to be so far away from my Samaria block that it won't cancel my recoil on the first frame. It'll be the next frame. And my Y coordinate will have actually gone up, which is not good, right? So I need to bring the Samaria block along with me. Well, when you're clipped inside of a Samaria block, you can actually move its position without moving Link at all. So all we need to do is, I'm going to select buffer this to make it easy, is I'm going to hold cardinal up, and that will move the Samaria block up. I can move it all the way, I can move it 3 pixels until it's just covering Link's belt, that final pixel of Link's belt, and that's fine. So now I can do 3 more damage like this ordinarily until I'd have to reset this. In this case, I'm at Y coordinate 668, which is where the bottom of the wall is. So I'm actually brushing up against the wall here and trying to make it inside of the doorway. 7F7 is 1 pixel to the left of the center of the doorway, so I'm still aligning, and I just need to whap Link in the butt from the while I'm holding a diagonal right input so that he actually aligns with the door properly. So now I'm at 7F8, I'm perfectly in the middle of the door. I'm at 668, which is the very front of the door, and I could be holding any diagonal input at this point when I get shocked, and that'll make progress inside the door, which I can see visually pretty easily without using the coordinates because Link's belt is now becoming more visible. So I need to bring the Samaria block up with me a little bit more. That was only 2 pixels. I might be cool with that if I was worried about not select buffering properly, then maybe I'm okay with just stopping on the final belt pixel. Or if I really wanted to get that extra movement and I was really good at select buffering, then maybe I could go for it. In this case, I got 2 frames before I opened the select menu. So the Samaria block is actually 1 pixel further away from link than it should be. If I'm shocked here, I will make no forward progress, and the block will just stay where it is relative to link. So that's not good. We want to be making forward progress, obviously. So I can actually recover from this situation pretty easily. All I need to do is hold cardinal down for at least 1 frame, and that will push the block down without moving link's position. Because I am clipped into the block, link will not move in most situations unless, you know, the block's no longer on you. So now I can continue to making forward progress. I can tell because link's belt is becoming more and more into view. This is the bottom frame that the Samaria block can be, so I need to bring it up with me so that I can continue to make forward progress. Okay, so now that's in perfect alignment with the belt here. You can see if I move it off to the side that that's the case. So I should be able to be damaged here and be just fine. Okay, that was 3 hits, so I need to bring the Samaria block up. And here I'm doing it unbuffered because I've practiced this, so that's fairly easy to do. Okay, in this case, I happen to take 8 hearts of damage overall. You can do this with, I think, 5 or 5.5. I forget what the ideal is, but you can do this with even less health than I have here. Let's do it again, and I'm going to show you how to set it up if you don't have the boots to bonk into position. It's pretty easy. So what I do is I, first of all, place the block while I'm kind of lined up with this. You could also, from back here, throw it into position, which actually has it land 1 pixel higher, which is useful. Be wary, though, if you're going to throw it into position, don't keep moving, because your movement will sometimes cause the Samaria block to bounce a little lower than normal, like there, and now the Samaria block is way too far away from the barrier. So if you want to use the throw method, just stay standing, and then it gets in position. And then from here, I have to line up on the very topmost pixel or the pixel below that. 66C or 66D should allow me to squeeze in there. So that's 66D. So yeah, I'm squeezed in there. Those pixel references are link's hand is flush with the bottom of the rail. So you can see there it's flush with the bottom of the rail to his left side. That's 66D. Or you can be where his hand is 1 pixel above. So that's 66C. Either one of those will work for this setup. Visually, the Cane of Samaria block, you can just tell like how it's cutting off the eyeball. It can be as high as here with this setup. It can't be any higher than that. And this setup, if you push it that high, this requires you to be on 66C instead of 66D. So here, link's hand is flush with the bottom of the rail to his left, so that's 66D, and I would push this Samaria block here. So I actually need to be 1 pixel higher. So there's 66C, and now I can get into place. So that's the bootsless / bonkless method of getting into place. So now I take damage, and with this particular setup, I need to move the Samaria block up very first thing. Otherwise, I will not make any more forward progress. Okay, and now I need to move it up, and I'm a little bit aligned to the right, so I need to whap him moving diagonal left, and now I'm centered with the doorway. So I tend to only select buffer. Okay, now I can't tell because link's facing the opposite direction. There we go. Okay, now I can see his belt again. I tend to only select buffer as I'm lining up in the doorway because that's the most difficult part of this trick. And then after that, I tend to just try to do the rest unbuffered. For the unbuffered thing, you might be able to tell with my inputs, what I'm doing here is occasionally, you know, I'm moving back and forth and I'm changing my diagonal input during the shock animation so that the Samaria block doesn't go any further up than I mean it to. But occasionally I will swap from up left to up right in the middle of the portion of the animation in which this Samaria block can actually move. And because I am not perfectly transitioning from an upright to an up left, and there's a little bit of gap in between of cardinal up, then that's what allows the block to advance with me. So I'm just like in a rhythm where I'm like jiggling it back and forth so that I can do that part unbuffered. So that's how the unbuffered part works. It takes a little bit of practice, and I'm not sure I totally explained it there. Okay, a couple of quirks. One is, this is not really related to the tech, but I thought I would show it since I need to reset my position anyway. If you just walk out of the door here as normal and don't press anything on the D-pad, you'll take damage as you exit. Know that you don't have to do that. If you hold a down input, then you take no damage. This is because this is a quirk of the barrier, and it's actually part of what makes this whole tech work in the first place, that as long as Link is quote-unquote moving south, he does not take damage from the barrier. So that's kind of a cool trick. I'm going to refresh my health here so we can do this again. I wanted to show you a quirk of how you can get stuck on the side of the door as you're lining it up. So let's see if I can't do that. So I'm going to move this kind of into place. Use the bonk method to get into place. Okay, that's 1 pixel too high. Okay, that should be it. Okay, I'm going to buffer, and I'm going to intentionally be off alignment to the right here. So now I'm at 669 on the Y coordinate. Okay, now I'm at 668, and I'm going to go a little bit further off. So 7FA. So that's just 2 pixels, right? Yeah, 2 pixels off alignment of where I should be. Now, it can happen that if the Samaria block is totally covering Link's belt, it can happen that you might get stuck here, and you're not making any side-to-side progress. So even though I know I need to move to the right, which means I need to be holding diagonal up left during the shock animation, you can see I was holding diagonal up left there, but I'm still at 7FA. And there I was holding up right, and I'm still at 7FA. And this is a weird quirk you might find yourself in if you're trying to align with the door. The reason that this is happening is because when you're trying to align with the door in this fashion, if you're already up against the wall at 668, you will not slide left to right if the Samaria block is at the topmost pixel it can ordinarily be. So in this case, because it's covering that top belt position, that's why I'm not making any side-to-side progress. So I need to push the Samaria block down a frame, which I can do just by holding cardinal down. And you can reset this block's position at any time using this trick, so that at least 1 pixel of Link's belt is visible. Now, if I hold up left as I'm being shocked, you can see I'm actually making progress now. I'm at 7F9 and 7F8, and now I can go inside the door. Okay, so now I have tried to jiggle the block so that, while unbuffered, so that it moves up a little bit along with me, but I've actually moved it up too high, and I need to push it down. This is pretty easy, just like I showed you before. All you need to do is hold down, and that pixel I'm pretty sure is good, but I'm just gonna move it one more. I mean, I could do diagonal down right to show that I actually can see his belt, but I just happen to know from the pixel reference of his shirt and how much of his shirt was visible, I happen to know that that was a good pixel. So now I can continue to make forward progress. So if you find yourself like clipped into the block because you've tried to do it unbuffered, say, and you got too far in, like this is an example, then you can just do some cardinal down movement to shove the block south and reset. You can also do that same adjustment unbuffered that I showed there in a buffered fashion. That works too. And that's about it. That's not about it. Let me show you a couple more quirks. One is you can use the Cane of Burna in order to take no damage if you happen to have it. You will still be ejected by the barrier. It's not like the cape where it allows you to get inside on its own. It just means that as you're being ejected, you're not taking any damage. And otherwise, this trick works exactly the same. I want you to notice my health value, though, as I make it inside the doorway. So I'm currently at 110 health, which is 11 hearts exactly. Oh, this Samaria block wore off. Let's just watch. I failed to mention this before. We'll just conclude this part and pretend that the block was on. So I was at 104 before, or sorry, 102, right before I entered the barrier, and now I'm at 100. That would be true as well, even if I had enough magic that the Cane of Burna was on that whole time. You would still take 1 damage as you enter. So just know that, and in case you're doing some like really precise health thing, or you're worried about dying, like, yeah, you do have to have the correct health value. Or you do have to have at least 1 hit remaining, even when you're using the Cane of Burna in order to do this. You'll take 1 extra hit as you go inside. What else could I mention? It is possible for you to drink a potion. So say, for example, I was trying to use the Cane of Burna because I have not very high max health in order to do this trick. You can drink a potion to, say, refill your health or refill your magic, but you have to do it on a perfect frame. So there's like 1 frame in which right after you're done being electrocuted and before you're being recoiled, you actually can do 1 health drink, but it is very tight and there's no way to buffer it. So you just have to do it unbuffered. the whole reason that I was even like looking for this glitch, actually I was looking for a Samaria method or any method to sequence break the barrier just a couple days before this happened, but I couldn't find one. And then Infomaniac came out with this really awesome barrier skip involving the Ether medallion. I'll link to their video in the description below. At the time, they imagined that this required up and down inputs, which are not legal in most categories. So we thought that this was like TAS only kind of thing. But in fact, it doesn't require that. You just need to have enough of a magic bar or certain other circumstances in order to be able to do this all in one go. So what this involves is using the Ether medallion on the exact frame that Link is still able to do stuff before he's shocked again and takes damage. So let me get on the topmost pixel here to demonstrate the start of this. The start of this is easy enough. All you have to do is press up and Y on the same frame. So that's not the hard part. The hard part is, I'll make a save state here. We need to then press Y on the very next frame that we're able. There we go. I happened to do it. That was super lucky. I'm not going to get it again though. So it requires successive Y button presses on the exact right frame. Here, all I'm doing is I'm just like mashing and then praying, and you know, depending on how fast I mash, there's a certain percentage chance I'll happen to be pressing the Y button on the correct frame. Maybe with like some like hover rhythm or something like that, you could come up with a way to do this consistently. However, you would need to have twice the speed of a normal hover, because a hover does an A press every other frame, and this would need to be, ideally, doing a Y press every single frame. And you need to do 11 of these successively. So if you weren't doing it every single frame, that would just introduce more chance of failure. When you need to have 11 of them successively, it would pretty much need to be a Y press every single frame. You might think that you can select buffer. Like, one of the cool things about the Ether medallion that might be helpful, but turns out not to be, is while it's playing the actual animation like that, I can hold select, which means that it'll open up the select menu on the very first frame it can after the animation is over. So you might think like, oh, cool, okay, now all I have to do is press Y on the frame after closing the menu, and I could come up with some sort of method to do that. Like in the spin speed setup, you know, you roll your thumb from the B to the A button very quickly in order to hit the A button on the frame after releasing your spin. You could do the same thing to close the menu and then press Y on the first frame that you could. The problem is that if we take a look at the actual setup, let me hold it here. So there I am. You can see that the damage happens on the same frame that it's registering the select input. So it's already too late. I need to be pressing the Y for the Ether on the same frame that I would ordinarily be taking damage. Actually, you do take damage, but it's already too late. So even if I did the roll method there, it just wouldn't work because I've already taken damage. So unfortunately, I don't think there's a way that you can buffer these inputs. It really is just straight up 11 successive frame perfect inputs. So even if this were, you know, relatively human viable, I don't think you would want to use this in a race. Speaking of using it in a race, please do not use these glitches yet, anyway, as of the making of this video in a competitive race, because as of the making of this video, there are no rulings about this glitch whatsoever, either as it regards the rando racing rule set called the competitive rule set, or as it regards any vanilla category. So there have been no rulings, and even though there already is an allowed sequence break to get you inside the Agate Tower barrier, that's the Fairy Revive method I mentioned before, that does not mean that this is automatically allowed either. This is a new version, a new type of way of skipping this barrier, so it always requires a new ruling from the council. If and when, there will be a ruling eventually. So once those rulings come out, I will update the description below so you can just see at a glance, oh, yep, okay, no, even though Kern was saying, watch out, no, it's allowed now. So yeah, check out the description if you want to know more, or if you're ever in doubt, go to a link to the Past Randomizer Discord, ask around, or check out the Racing Council news and see what they had to say about it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you later.